Thank you, church, for getting a little weird with your preacher this morning. I believe in the power of prayer. I believe in the laying on of hands. I believe it's something that the church has gotten away from simply because it's a little weird. But we are called to be a peculiar people, called to be different, called to walk different, to just operate different. And I'm thankful for what God is doing. Just by a quick way of introduction before we jump into this morning's message, 2 weeks from today we are starting our spring revival, and I'm tickled about it. I can't even tell you how excited I am about it. And I know that it is hard throughout the week after you've been working your 8, 10, 12, 14-hour shift. You've been up since 3:30 in the morning. To get out of church, to get out of work, to fly home, to grab a McDonald's cheeseburger to feed your little munchkins and fly back over here. You may not even have time to take a shower. I know it's hard. I get it. I've been there and I've done it. But hear me, we don't have revival because we ain't got nothing better to do. We do this, we pump a ton of money into this, because I believe in it. I believe it helps people. Some of the greatest services we've ever experienced in this place has happened during revival. Oh, I believe it was last year, or maybe the year before that. Man, the Lord just settled on this place in such a way. I didn't know what to do. I was lost as last year's Easter egg. And but the Lord was so in this place. The preacher done preached. They were going through the invitation, and things just began to happen. People began to worship. People began to just pile in the altar, weeping. And the preacher was at the back, ready to go just about it. And God began to move. And for about the next 30 to 45 minutes, people just began to worship, hug on one another. Till I came to the place to where I felt God so thick in this place. I felt like Moses. I took off my shoes because I felt like I was standing on holy ground, and I got on my face before God. And we believe in the power. I believe in it. So here's what I'm saying. We want to invite you and beg you to come to revival. We've got a little video here I'm going to show you in just a second. Don't hit play yet. Don't hit play yet, but we got a video, highlight reel, if you will, of the preachers that are going to be coming this week. And these guys are coming from all over. We got guys coming from Georgia, from North Carolina. Where else are they coming from? Georgia, North Carolina? I think that's it. They're all over the place. But a few of them live in North Carolina, a couple of them live in Georgia. But listen, we invite them from all over the place. And help me out, because they're coming for you. You hear me? They're coming to pour into you. But you can't get help if you ain't here. Let's just be frank. It's embarrassing when you pay somebody money, you put them in a hotel, you feed them, they show up, and there's 12 people here. It's embarrassing. It's like, well, why are we having revival if the people don't care for it, if we don't want it? Man, this has changed our church. It's changed the course. God has given us vision. And I want you to experience that same thing. So please just go ahead and clear out your schedule March 2nd through the 7th. We'll start on Sunday night. We'll run through that whole week, Monday through Friday, and we'll see what the Lord will have for us. Go ahead and hit that play button. Make sure the screen is pulled up, and when that's done, we'll jump into this morning's sermon.
Representative. Jesus said it like this in Acts chapter 1. You are supposed to be
Excited about revival? Somebody give God a hand clap of praise. Amen. If you're excited about revival, somebody give God a hand clap of praise for that. I'm excited about it. I can't wait to see what God is going to do in a couple of weeks. But this morning, the book of Nehemiah, we'll be diving off into the book of Nehemiah. Nehemiah, he was the cupbearer, just by way of introduction, the cupbearer to King Artaxerxes. He is known for rebuilding the walls of Jerusalem and rebuilding the gates of Jerusalem. They had been set on fire. They had been through war. The walls had been crushed. The gates had been set fire. They were just a heap of mess, and it was a train wreck. We find in chapter 1 where some men come unto Nehemiah, and they say, Nehemiah, have you heard about Jerusalem? He says, what are you talking about? They says, it's a heap of a mess. It's a train wreck. All of our protection is gone. The gates that used to be so mighty and used to be so magnificent to look upon, they're gone. He says, people can come in and out, and we have no protection. It's a train wreck. And Nehemiah's heart is broken. He stands before the king, King Artaxerxes, brings him his cup of wine. And back in that day, it was illegal to come into the king's presence with a broken heart. When you walked into his presence, your number one job was to be happy. You were not to bring any kind of depression, any kind of sadness, any kind of anxiety into the throne room. And here's Nehemiah walking in with a broken heart. He's got the molly grubs. Y'all know what the molly grubs are? That's the old Northeast Georgia mountain terms. You got the old pooched out lip and the poor pitiful me. And it's just, oh, the sun's shining today and I wish it wasn't. Or it's raining and I wish it wasn't. Or it's been raining for 3 days and I ain't had time to put my garden in the ground. It got warmer, then it got cold again. I'm tired of the cold. Ain't nothing. It's the molly grubs. And here comes old Nehemiah walking in. Here's your cup. And King's like, what's wrong with you? See, the king had every right to take his head off in that moment. Say, nah, we ain't having that today. Get on out of here. But he said, what's wrong? He says, oh, king, how in the world can I be happy when my hometown is lying waste? I think that's some of us here this morning. How in the world can I come to the Lord's house with a smile on my face when my home is a wreck? How in the world, God, can I come in here and say hallelujah and brag about the goodness of God when I know what's waiting back at my address? And the king says, well, what would you have me to do about it? You see, there's many times we want to complain, but we don't really want a solution. You ever met somebody that you learned not to ask them how they're doing? You simply say, it's good to see you today. Because you know, if you say, my good brother Corey, how are you doing? It ain't you. But if it's like, well, it's in your mind you're thinking, oh no, here we go. He's as chipper as can be. But we've met those kinds of people, and they don't want a solution. Something that I always do it in counseling sessions is before we end, I'm like, okay, here is what we're doing next. Here's the next step. Here's where we're going. Because we don't take an hour out of our night just to come and sit and talk about all the bad. We got to make forward progression. And the next time that we come back, my first question is always this right here. All right, did you do X, Y, Z? Many times if I'm counseling with a married couple, I'll say, when's the last time you went on a date? Oh, I said, without your phone, without your kids, without your mama, all you did, it was just you and her. Well, it's been a long time. I'm like, okay. In 2 weeks when we meet, you had better have been on a date. It ain't got to be no money. You can go out and sit in the backyard with a cheap Dollar Tree candle and a pimento cheese sandwich. I don't care, but you better get away. And the first question that I ask, I'm like, how was your date? And I'm waiting for the person to say, well, we just didn't have time. Because here's going to be my next response. Well, I ain't got time to meet tonight. I'll see you in 2 weeks after you go on your date. Because we got to have some progression. Not just going through the molly grubs and living like that. So here's Nehemiah coming to the king, and the king says, what do you want to do about it? And we begin to see in chapter 2 where the king begins to pour out his favor in Nehemiah's life. This morning I want to preach a simple sermon entitled, A Labor of Love. Working towards something that we love. Working towards something that we care about. Working towards something that will fix the problems of life. We have problems here at church, and it's good problems, but they're problems nonetheless, and we're striving to make things happen. You see, Nehemiah, as he stood before the king, he had a broken heart. And the king says, well, what do you want to do about it? And he says, well, I'd like to do this and this and this and this. You see, Nehemiah had vision. He had dreams. He had ambition. He had goals. He had everything that he needed. But it all came from a broken heart. He heard the bad news, and it broke his heart. I've learned this just by working with people over the years. A broken heart will lead you down one of two paths. A broken heart will lead you down the road of bitterness, leading to more brokenness, anger, and resentment towards anybody and everybody around you because of the hand you got dealt. Or a broken heart will lead you down a road of healing, of restoration, and replenishing, and God will step in the middle of it and heal what was broken. I've seen that happen on both sides. Somebody stand over a casket, and they never be the same. And from that day forward, it's always sad, sad, sad. Even though their family member's in heaven, even though their loved one is at the throne of God, even though they're watching the seraphims and the seraphims fly around the throne, crying, holy, holy, holy. Even though they're there, they're down here saying, my goodness, I ain't ever been the same since Mama passed. But I've seen other people who lost their spouse of 50 years smile and laugh and say, I'm going to miss him, but I'm glad I know where he's at. And they press on, and they still pour into people. They still live a life that just oozes joy. Why? Because a broken heart will lead you down one of two paths. This morning I want to look at the path that Nehemiah traveled down and how his life became a labor of love. Nehemiah chapter number 2, we see where he asked, the king asked him, what shall we do for you? What can I do? And I love this, and this isn't up here. We haven't gotten into the reading yet, but in chapter 4, or verse number 4, the Bible says, the king said to me, for what dost thou make request? So I prayed to the God of heaven. Immediately, it was praying without ceasing. I mean, he's in the middle of a conversation, and the king says, well, what do you want me to do? And he whispers a prayer, oh, God, help me in this moment. King, here's what I'd like to do. I'd like to get a letter that says I can go to Jerusalem, to where I'm not captured between here and there, to where I'm not put into slavery between here and there, to where I'm not beat between here and there. He said, I'd like a letter that says I can go from here in the king's palace to the town of Jerusalem. He says, not only that, he said, I'd like to get a letter from the king that says, I can go into your forest and cut your trees down and rebuild the wall and rebuild the gates. And the king says, let me see right here. He fills out a letter, puts his stamp of approval, hands him the letter to get to where he's going, fills out a letter and says, here is a letter for the man who keeps my forest. You take it to him and he'll give you whatever you need. Here's what I love about Nehemiah. He got permission to go to where he needed to go. And secondly, he got permission to get whatever he needed. You know what I love about this story? It didn't cost him a dime to go and fulfill the vision God had given him. You know, there's some of us in here that we're terrified to step out of our comfort zone, even though we see the problem, and God has given us vision, and God has given us goals, and we know that God spoke to us. We can't shake it. We've lost our appetite over it, and it's like, my God, but how am I going to afford it, and how am I going to have time? If we'd only have enough gumption about us to trust him. The king will make a way, and the king will pay for it. The king paid for it all. And not only that, he gave him captains of the army and horsemen to follow Nehemiah. Nehemiah, a simple cupbearer, hops on his horse, gets ready to ride Jerusalem with a letter saying, I'll pay all that needs to be paid, and a letter saying, you better not touch me. And then he looks back, and the captains of the king's army are following him. The men on the horses are following him. Can you imagine as he began to ride through the little cities and all the governors of the little towns, as they would stand on their walls and look out, they'd see a man riding a horse with a satchel by his side and soldiers behind him saying, the king has done sent somebody this direction. Y'all better get ready. The king has sent people. I don't know what's going to happen. A cupbearer, nonetheless. His only job was to take the cup. Ooh, there's coffee in here. Sip on it. I done had 2 cups of espresso this morning. I don't need no more coffee. I'm roasting. I'm boiling from the inside. But sip on it. Make sure there wasn't no poison. What a job to have. And say, I ain't dying. You can have some now. That is Nehemiah's job. A simple cupbearer. And yet, is that yours? Okay. A simple cupbearer. And yet he's been given this task to go and to rebuild. But here's what I find so strange in verse number 17 of chapter 2. Then said I unto them, who? The people of Jerusalem. You see the distress that we are in, the problems, the embarrassment, and how Jerusalem lieth waste. It's a train wreck. And the gates of there are burned with fire. Come, let us build. If you highlight, if you underline, if you circle, whatever it is, I would highlight, underline it, circle it. Let us build up the wall of Jerusalem, that we be no more a reproach, an embarrassment, an easy target. Verse 18. Then I told them of the hand of my God, which was good upon me. Notice that he don't talk about his position. He don't talk about where he come from. He don't talk about all of his dreams and all of his goals. He says, let me tell you. He says, I'm just a humble cupbearer, but I serve the King of Kings. I'm not talking about King Artaxerxes. I serve the God of all little g gods. I serve the Lord of Lords. I serve the Rose of Sharon, the great high priest. I serve the Creator God, and he's got favor on me. And also the king's words that he had spoken. He says, and the king told me, here's all that I need. And look what the people said. Let us rise up and build. So they strengthened their hands for this good work. Nehemiah had the right to go. He had permission to get. But you know one thing Nehemiah couldn't do? He couldn't build the wall by himself. All he could do was come in and say, I've got the materials, and I've got the time, and I've got all that we need to get the job done, but I need you to help me build it. He says, we got problems, and you can see the problems. We got issues, and you can see the issues. It's lying waste, and if we're not real careful, we're in trouble. But I've got a solution, but I need your help. There was provision for the problem. He comes in and he's got all the solutions to fix that which was broken. He came in, he was more of an overseer than a builder. He was the one who said, we see a problem, let's see how we can fix this problem. There's an issue, let's see how we can fix this issue. You need more timber? Here's the king's credit card. Go and cut more trees down. We need more time? Here's a letter saying, I've got all the time. You need to go a little further? I've got a letter saying he will convey us. He will protect us to go further than we thought we needed to go. He had protection from the king. There was a provision for the problem. But man, I think it's so crazy. You know, here at Friendship, we can sit down, we can have our team meetings, we can have all the conversations, we can have the finances to make things better, we can have the resources to make things better, we can give the training to make things better. But hear me, Friendship Baptist Church will not grow because of me. Did you catch that? It ain't going to get better because of me. I ain't nobody. I'm just like Nehemiah. I am just a humble cupbearer. All I have is the favor of God, just like you got, by the way. All I have is a letter from the king, just like you got. That Bible, where's your Bible? Throw me your Bible. I can't reach mine up there. I've got a letter from the king that holds He's got all the answers to all of life's problems right here. That's all I do. We got a problem, preacher. What are we going to do? Lord God, we got a problem. What do we do? I don't have some supernatural, super holy, spiritual realm that I walk into on Monday morning and I levitate in my office and say, oh, no, that don't happen. In fact, you get over here early enough Monday morning, I ain't going to be here. You know why? Because I'm going to be sleeping. I don't have this supernatural ability. But God has sent, give us the ability. But if friendship is ever going to do anything for the kingdom of God, hear me, it's the people that'll build it. It's y'all. God has given y'all power. Notice what they said. They said, let us build. And so they strengthened their hands for the work. It takes work, but it's a labor of love. Why do we do it? Because we love it. Why do we work? Why do we, for revival, why in the world do we slave and rush just to be exhausted the next day? Because we love what God is building. We love what God is doing. We love how God is working. There was a provision for the problem. Let us build. The hand of God is upon me. Let us rise up and build. And they strengthened their hands for the good work. But secondly, chapter number 4, verses 6 through 9, the Bible tells us this right here. So we built the wall, and all the wall was joined together unto the half thereof. Boy, if you highlight or underline, for the people, not Nehemiah, the people had a mind to work. Ooh, boy, that helps me. But it came to pass that when Sanballat and Tobiah and the Arabians and the Ammonites and the Ashdodites heard that the walls of Jerusalem were made up and that the breaches began to be stopped. Boy, I've got this circled and underlined 3 times, this next word. This next word. Then they were very wroth. Notice that the enemy didn't have a problem with the people in Jerusalem until they began to fix that which was broken. The enemy did not care that they were still conducting business. The enemy didn't care that they were still living. The enemy didn't care that they were still going to church. The enemy didn't care that they were still praying. The enemy didn't care that they were still raising families and raising cattle and building their gardens. The enemy did not care. But the moment the enemy lost the free will to walk in and out, then they had a problem. I can't tell you how many times I've seen this. Somebody who is, I'm talking neck deep in sin. I've seen homeless fellas get saved. I've seen drug addicts get saved. I've seen adulterers get saved. I've seen all the likes of the world that has to offer get saved. And when they try to start serving the Lord, it seems like all hell breaks loose in their life. I'm talking cars start breaking down. Friends start walking out on them. Everything that could go wrong in their life goes wrong in their life. Now, why in the world does that happen? Verse number 8. This happens to all of us. And conspired all of them, all of who? The enemy of Jerusalem. They came together to fight against Jerusalem and to hinder it. What is it? It is not Jerusalem. It is the advancement of the vision. It is building up of the walls. It is rebuilding the gates. It is protecting against enemies. They came to hinder the calling of God. They came to hinder how the people had a mind to work, and they were going ahead, and they were fighting ahead, and they were building the wall, and they were going and cutting timber down and rebuilding the gates, and they were sweeping out the old rock, and they were pushing away all the burnt down timbers, and they began to build up things. So when the enemy was riding their horse and they come by just to walk in and grab an apple without paying for it, they come to a gate and said, it wasn't like this last week. Who has been doing something in my neck of the woods? You know why that is? Because the devil has plans for you. The same way you got plans for your family, so does the devil. The same way you've got dreams and goals and hopes and aspirations to better your life, the devil has those same dreams to destroy it. He, the thief, cometh not, but to steal, kill, and destroy. He says, but I am come that they might have life and have it more abundantly. It's two roads in the same person's life. The devil sees you. Man, my God. You know who the devil don't attack? Christians who ain't doing nothing, who are sitting by the side of the way. I'm talking about lazy Christians who don't care about getting in the book, people who don't care about serving the kingdom, people who don't care about building up the kingdom, and they don't attack because the enemy has free reign to walk in and out whenever they please. You know, an alcoholic doesn't struggle with alcoholism until they try to stop. A drug addict doesn't struggle with drugs until they try to stop. A pornography addict doesn't struggle with porn until he says, I can't do this anymore. And then all of a sudden, what the enemy had just free reign to walk in and free reign to do. And it was just a part of everyday life. And just the struggles of life was just normal. When you say, no, I believe that God is calling me to something holier. I believe God is calling me to build up. I believe God is calling me to do more. I believe, then all of a sudden, the alcoholic will break out in the sweats. They'll be angry. They'll have headaches. Boy, you say, you want to feel, here, I encourage you. Start drinking about 3 espressos a day. 1 in the morning, 1 at lunch, and 1 at night. Do it for about 4 weeks straight. And then stop drinking coffee, cold turkey. You know what's going to happen? You ain't ever laid a finger on your wife, but you'll think about backhanding her. You ain't ever... You raise your voice at your kids. Y'all, I've raised my voice at my kids. But you ain't ever raised your voice at your kids. All of a sudden, they do one thing wrong. And this devil climbs up your spine and every hair on your neck stands up. And you think, I'm about to kick Junior through a wall. Lord Jesus, help me. It's because you're trying to move in a right direction and something is pushing against you. Point number 2, not only was there a provision for the problem, but there was people with a purpose. You see, if you go back to verse number 9, I love this verse. My God, I love this verse. When they came, the enemy came to hinder, the enemy came to push back. The enemy was ill that the people were making advancements. This next word, my God, I'm going to become a Pentecostal. And they conspired all of them together to come and to fight against Jerusalem and to hinder it. Nevertheless, we made our prayer under our God and set a watch against them day and night because of them. Hear me, child of God. If you're going through it, and you're pushing, and you're pushing, and you're pushing. And it seems like the harder you push, and the harder you strive to live for God, and the more you strive to jump in and do what God's calling you to do. And it seems like there's just something pushing back. You know what you need to do? Get you just like the children of Jerusalem, a nevertheless mentality. I got a headache, but I'm still going to get up and I'm still going to serve. I feel ill this morning, but I'm still going to get up with a smile on my face. Why? Because I've got purpose in my life. Yes, life used to be a wreck, and yes, life used to be laying in ruins, but today God has given me purpose. God has given me a calling, and while the devil may be knocking at the door, I'm going to open it up with my Louisville Slugger resting on my shoulder, and I'm gonna bop him right on the head, and I'm gonna walk out to my car, I'm gonna crank it up, and I'm gonna drive on E all the way to church, and I'm gonna put my hands to work. I'm gonna serve the kingdom. Why? Because I've got purpose. Nevertheless, you know, some of you ain't served in a long time because of trauma, because you ain't got a nevertheless mentality. Some of you ain't stepped out of your comfort zone and let God be Lord of your life because you haven't found that nevertheless mentality. All it takes is one little thing to mess up or to get you sideways, and it's, well, I'll handle the spiritual things later. Hear me. If you aren't handling spiritual things are handling you. Oh, somebody ought to write that down. You better tweet that one. What do you mean, preacher? If you're not striving for the kingdom, the enemy is striving to push you away from the kingdom. How do I get a nevertheless mentality, preacher? Find your purpose. Find what God has called you to do. Preacher, how do I do that? Come and have a conversation with me. We've got, I believe, 14 or 16 people going through our new membership class today. Every single one of you that come to that class, we've got a spiritual gift survey. You go through it. It's just a few questions. And it highlights strengths and weaknesses in your life. I've taken it, and it nailed me to a T. There are some people, you are not called to serve in children's ministry. Some of y'all can testify of that. Some of y'all are like me, and you are not called to organizational skills. You ain't got it. But some of you got it. Man, they set a guard, they set a watch because of them. What does that mean, preacher? It means they set people on the parts of the wall that they had built, and they watched for Tobiah and his crowd. They watched for them Amorites. They watched for those that were coming to tear down in the middle of the night. They held their spears, and they had a cup of coffee in one hand, and they stayed awake on. They was watching. I hope somebody comes. Oh my God, I hope somebody shows. I've heard conversations from some of y'all. We a bunch of crazy, trigger-happy rednecks in the southern United States of America. Some of y'all are praying that you hear a window break at 2 o'clock in the morning so you can grab your AR-15. You've been praying to send somebody to meet their maker. I've had conversations that say, honey, somebody's here. Thank God I've been praying for this day. Let's go. You're praying for it. You're praying to get in. I don't know how we got off on that, but there we go. You're looking for it. Do you have purpose? Are you watching? How do I watch, preacher? Say, preacher, my marriage is struggling. We got people who can help with that. Preacher, my finances are there. I can't keep up track with them. We've got people for that. Preacher, my life seems like such a mess. I can't find to do anything. I feel I'm at my wit's end. We got people in here who can help with that. I ain't got all the answers, but I know people who got answers. I know people who you can go and you can sit down with, and they'll take a look at your finances and say, okay, I see you said it's hard to pay your car insurance, but I see you buy 4 Starbucks a day, and every Starbucks is $8.17 a glass. You may want to cut some Starbucks out and buy you some. Don't buy Maxwell House. God help. That you'll smell like a 57-year-old smoker who smoked 14 packs a day. Every time I drink a cup of Maxwell House, I go back to sitting in the little country restaurants when you could smoke inside with my grandpa, and he'd be sipping on Maxwell House. Get you some Folgers or some El Cheapo stuff. You can do that. And stay away from Starbucks. It's possible. Look, y'all, don't judge me. I love Starbucks just as much as anybody. I got me a white girl drink yesterday. I'm talking brown and bottom, brown on the bottom. It's about that much white on top. I got some caramel drizzle on it, a white chocolate mocha with extra vanilla, extra caramel, 2 pumps of this, whipped cream, caramel drizzle, and caramel pump, and iced, shaken. Thank you. Oh, yeah, and I walk out. People looking at me smiling because I got cowboy boots on, I got rugged jeans on, I got a T-shirt, I had a hat on backwards. I had my keys on my finger, and I had my white girl drink. People in Starbucks are smiling at me. I'm like, if you had some of this, you'd get some of it too. Don't be laughing. Don't be laughing. There's ways to make things happen. We got people to help. What are they, preacher? They're people who can set guard and watch. It's okay to struggle. It's normal to struggle. It's normal to fight hell by the acre. It's normal for the enemy to come against you. In fact, that's a real good sign that you're doing something right. It's a real good sign. Say, preacher, I'm struggling more than I ever have. I found many times when you struggle more than you ever have, it's because you're doing more for the kingdom than you've ever done. That's a good problem. But you got to remember, nevertheless. Yeah, I'm going to experience trouble. Nevertheless. I'm going to be exhausted. Nevertheless. I'm going to have issues. Nevertheless. I'm going to prioritize my life. Why? Because I love serving the kingdom. It's a labor. It's a job. It's a labor of love. My goodness. People watched because they had a problem. This isn't up there, but verses 15, 16, and 17, it says this here. And it came to pass when our enemies heard that it was known unto us, and God had brought their counsel to naught, that we returned all of us to the wall, every one unto his work. And it came to pass from that time forth that the half of my servants wrought in the work. They worked in it. And the other half of them held both the spears and the shields and the bows and the habergeons. And the rulers were behind all the house of Judah. They which builded the wall, and they that bear burdens with those that laid it. Every one with his hands wrought in the work, and with the other hand held a weapon. Sometimes that's how it's going to be in life. You're going to be fighting the devil with this hand, swinging your sword. And on this side, you're going to be trying to lay bricks. What do you mean? Let's bring it to 2025. Work is going to get crazy. It's going to get busy. It's going to get hard. Your boss is going to be barking down your neck. And you're going to pull up in your driveway in a mood. Oh, that happens to the preacher too. You pull up to your house in a mood. After a long day, it's been a rough day. Everything that could go wrong did go wrong. And you got babies on the inside who have been looking forward to you pulling up. They've been waiting for it all day. And you walk in, and you're going to have an option to say, I'm going to snap at them, or I'm going to get down the floor and love on them. It's a labor of love because sometimes you're going to, when you don't feel like it, and it's been a long day and it's tired, you have to take that children's Bible and go sit in their bedroom and open it up. And when they've been going crazy, hopped up on sugar, you say, hey, let's settle down. Let's read about David and Goliath. Ooh, I like David and Goliath. Let's read about Noah and his ark. Ooh, all them animals on that big old boat. Let's read about when David brought the ark in. What's an ark? You got to invest. What is that? It's called work. It's work. It's not all fun and games, but it's work. Why? Because we're building up a wall in our children's hearts that hopefully the devil can't get through. That hopefully he can't just walk in and out of their life, but he has to work and fight and toil all day and all night just to get a glimpse. That's why we do it, because it ain't about us. It's about those babies that are downstairs right now. That we come here, we get dressed, and we have to fix their hair 4 times because as soon as you get their hair fixed and they walk out the bathroom, they do that right there. It's a labor of love. The people had a purpose. There was provision for the problem. The people had a purpose. And lastly, they had a praise because of prevailing. Chapter 6, verses 15 through 16. So the wall was finished in the 25th day of the month, Elul, in 52 days. They built this wall, the gates and everything, in 52 days. And it came to pass, when all of our enemies heard thereof, and all the heathen that were about us saw these things, they were much cast down in their own eyes. Bless the Lord. I love that the enemy got depressed. I love the ones that will come against us if we have that nevertheless mentality and we press and we push and we fight. There will come a day when the devil looks at us and says, doggone it, we lost that battle. I look forward to the day of giving the devil indigestion. They were much cast down on us, for they perceived that this work was wrought of our God. The walls and the gates were built in 52 days. I think that's incredible, man. You can't get nothing done in 52 days. Boy, we dug out that building out back 2 weeks ago. We still ain't put the footer up yet. We still ain't dug the rest of it out yet. I walk by and I look at it. You know what I say? I have got to get to that. 52 days, they built this wall around this whole city. They put the gates on all over. They built it. It was strong, and it wasn't just a little knee-high wall that you could hop over, but it was a wall of protection. It was high. It was mighty. But they did it not because of Nehemiah, but because the people had a will to work. What would God do with this place if we all got a nevertheless mentality about us and said, I'm going there to work? It's not, man, I can't wait to hear what I can get today. I can't wait to show up to see what I can receive today. But I'm coming to the house of God to see who can I invest in. Who can I pour in? What can I get and take back and work in my zone, work in my place, work in my workforce, wherever I work at. Maybe you're at Timken, maybe you're at a hospital, maybe you're at a garage handling cars. But how in the world can I take what I'm finding on Sunday, the provision that I need, and go back to my neck of the woods and pour into maybe that mama or dad that won't come to church. Maybe it's your cousins that ain't had nothing to do with church in a long time. Maybe it's the person that you work beside who said they don't even believe in God, but they fight in hell by the acre. And you can say, I know that you don't believe in God, but can I tell you, God can make a way even in your circumstance if you'd only let him. Man, what can I get to go and work in my area? The enemies that we experience can be defeated, but it's not because we're focusing on the enemies. We've got a sword to fight the enemies, absolutely, but we're focusing on building up the kingdom. I know some of y'all are going to go to work this week, and somebody's going to get underneath your skin. I know there's a real good chance somebody may get cussed out this week. If you are in sales, it may happen. If you got a job, they may hoop and holler at you. There's a chance that somebody may get embarrassed while you're on your work floor. It may happen. Nevertheless, I'm going to keep doing what God's called me to do. I'm going to keep pushing. But listen, don't focus on them. Focus on the work. I had a boss. I was working in a plant, and it was a rough time. There was a lot of pressure coming from the head people in the city, and they were saying, you got to build more stuff, and you got to get more stuff done. And man, we couldn't get the steel in to build what we needed to build. It was way back when all them boats were sitting right outside of the Gulf, and they wouldn't come in, they wouldn't dock. A lot of our steel was sitting on them boats. And the people were saying, why ain't you shipping stuff? I'm like, because I ain't got steel. Where's the steel at? I said, about a mile offshore. You want to go get it? Go get it. And man, we were just getting after it. Everybody started rubbing heads and butting heads and getting angry and getting ill with each other. And I had a boss, man. He was a godly man. He loved the Lord, and he come in, and we had all these spreadsheets we was looking at. We was talking about everything, and they said, and he had this whole plan to make everything come together. And somebody popped in and said, well, that ain't going to work. He took his papers, and he let out a big old expletive and threw them, and he said, do what you want to do then. And I thought, oh, this man said he's a Christian. He follows the Lord. I'm a preacher, and this guy just lost it. And it was all like, ooh. Like even the people who were atheists was like, my goodness, what in the world? And it wasn't a few minutes later after that meeting we finished up, he come by, every single person that was in that meeting. He walked up and he sat down right beside him and he said, hey, I want you to know I'm sorry for what I said. He said, I was ill, I got a temper, and I'm sorry. I shouldn't have said that. Will you please forgive me? And I was like, man, I done forgave you for it even. Like, yeah, absolutely. And he'd say, man, I appreciate that. I'm sorry. That ain't what God called me to. I'm sorry. I watched him get up. He walked into another office, and he sat down, and I heard him a few cubicles over whispering. He's saying the same thing. He's saying, I want to tell you, I'm sorry. God ain't called me to that. People who didn't believe in God, people who cuss like sailors, thought he's crazy. Man, it was just a word. It didn't hurt nobody. He says, I know that's how you feel, but God ain't called me to that. You know what he's doing? He was watching. He was working with purpose. And in his failure, he said, this ain't the end. Man, it gave me joy in my heart because he prevailed against the enemy. Yes, I failed, but it's not the end. the people of Jerusalem could praise because of prevailing. They kept going. Even though the enemy was pushing, even though the enemy was knocking them down, even though he was coming against them, they could keep going. Preacher, that's all great, but what in the world, how does any of that apply to us? Are we getting ready to build a big wooden wall with gates and throwing spears at anybody that may come against us? No, this ain't the planet of the apes. We ain't doing that. All right? But we are getting ready to expand. What do you mean, preacher? What God is doing in this place. I mean, I'm just looking around. You know what I see? I see people that wasn't here a week ago. I see quite a few people who weren't here a month ago. I see quite a few people here who weren't sick. Here's what I want to do. If you were here when I started October of 2020, I want you to stand up. If you were here when I started 4.5 years ago. Okay. Look at that. Okay. You were here when I started. All right. If you started coming that first full year, so maybe 2021, if you started coming in 2021, I want you to stand up. A couple of you, a few of you. If you started coming in 2022, I want you to stand up. Keep standing, keep standing. If you stood up, just keep standing. 2023, if you started coming last year, before you said, I want you all to look around. Look who's come in the last year. God's doing something. Y'all can sit down. Here's what I'm saying. Here's what I'm saying. What God is doing in this place on this property, right now, 220 Friendship Church Road cannot contain what God is sending us. Right now, we don't have the parking space to hold what God is doing in this place. We don't have the means to park the people. A couple of weeks ago, man, we had family day, and everybody came, and there's people parked in ditches. There's people parked way up the road. I'm saying that parking lot runs a long way, and there were cars lined up in the grass way up yonder, and we had to get binoculars to see them before they ever got here. I was out on the front porch trying to wave people to come on down. We got one spot right up here. Hey, you can come. We got one spot right over here. What are you saying, preacher? God is doing something in this place. And it's time that we stop sitting back and watching a couple of people do a lot of stuff. And it's time that we say, you know what? I'm going to strengthen my hands to work. I'm going to get after what God is doing here in this place. God has given me gifts. God's given me a voice. God's given me a strong back. I can carry a weight, and I can go, and I can do. Why? Because leadership alone will not build. We can have everything that we need, but if we ain't got you, all we'll have is a pile of timber and a letter in our pocket. Braden, go get them signs at your office. Hustle up. 52 days they built that wall. 51 days from today, we are going to have a special service, a special giving service, a day of celebration. It's Co-worker Day, April the 6th, 51 days from today. We're going to be taking up money. Why? We're calling it Building Together Sunday. We're going to pour out. You say, preacher, why are you making it so far out? Because it's tax season. Amen. We're going to wait. File your taxes. Get your money from Uncle Sam. But seriously, it's time for us to save up. Say, preacher, I believe in what God is doing here, and I don't want to just be a spectator. I want to be a participator. To pour rock out here, we've been getting money. We've been getting estimates. Our AC unit, our heater, it's about blown. It's about half shot. Come on a hot Sunday, and it'll be hot in here. It ain't because we ain't got the AC running. It's because it's broke. It's February. Thank God it's still a little chilly. You look at these wooden doors when it's a sunny day. You know what you can see through them through all the cracks. Go up to the carpet on the side. You'll see stains where water has come through the doors. We got some metal doors down there. They about rusted through. We got the door. You try to go to the doors down in the fellowship hall. You know what will happen? You'll jerk on it. You'll pull on it. You know why? Because they half broke. And the only reason they half broke is because they was broke. And we got them functional again. Between the rock's between, called $11,000 for rock. Our AC unit, we got to get, I think it's a 20-ton, I think. We're looking between $15,000 and $20,000. These doors that we're looking at around $8,000. You add all that up. You know what you're looking at? We're looking around $40,000. We got it in the bank account. But why in the world would I want to rob y'all a blessing to build? God brought you here. It means a whole lot more when you got skin in the game. I don't want to deplete accounts just to fix the basics. We're going to build. Say, preacher, okay, I'll start saving up for 6 weeks. But tonight we're starting a class, or we're starting training on what does it look like? What can I do in the here and now? In 2 weeks, we're going to start at what we're calling a hospitality team, a connection team. We need at minimum, bare minimum. When I say bare, I mean it's the same people do it every single Sunday. Without break, 12 people. We got a parking lot team. They're going to be out in the park and be helping people park cars, show them where to go. So on Friend Day, when you invite all your friends, I'm not the best at math, but if we count everybody up and everybody brings one person, we'll have double. Some of y'all caught it quick. Some of y'all are still thinking, what? Double? If everybody brings one person, we'll have double next week. We ain't got the parking for that. I encourage you, on your way out, stop and look and count up the amount of parking spots we have. This morning, there's about 100 of us here. I counted 90 people here, not counting the people who were with the kids. Got 90 people here. That's 100 people. You know how many parking spots we'll have this morning? We'll have about 22, 23 parking spots available. That's 40 people. What are we going to do when 200 people show up? We have nowhere for them to park. You know the best way for somebody to go somewhere else is for them not have a parking spot. Or for them to park on a morning like this morning. And they step out, and you ladies who got your heels on, you step in a mud puddle, and your heel sinks all 3.5 inches. And you walking like this right here. Trying to get to the asphalt. But we got all this parking around the side, and around the back, and around that side. Somebody new comes in, ain't going to know nothing about it. So we need some people to say, hey, welcome. I'm so glad you're here. What a great day it is to be in the Lord. Say, hey, I got a parking spot right here. Hey, man, I'm so glad you guys are here today. Man, my name is Stephen. He's all the time out there shaking his head. I'm Stephen, man. I'm so glad you're here today. And we're going to have tables out on that front porch. Welcome tables. That when you walk in, when you get up here, you're going to meet people. Braden said this morning, these connection cards are gold to us. Why is it gold? Because we get your name, we get your address, we get your phone number, all that. But we get to pray for you. How much do you have to hate someone not to care enough to pray for them? People who are fighting hell by the acre. I ain't gonna take 2 minutes and pray for somebody. We want to pray that God would show up. We're going to start this training tonight where the welcome team, you come in and you're welcome. We got people who are going to be in here who we're calling host people. They're going to say, hey, man, I got a seat right here for you. You can come sit. How did you get here? Do you know anybody? Or, I got invited by so-and-so. Or, hot dog. Do you want to sit with them? Let's go over there. Let's sit you with them. And you're a host of that section. And they need something. Hey, the bathrooms are over here. Hey, the kids' departments are down here. Can I show you around our church? I'd love for you to meet our pastor. We got a gift for you. Simple things. You ain't got to be a theologian to this. All you got to do is be able to talk. And guess what? Every single one of you can talk. You can. You can smile. Some of you, I think you can smile. You smile. I ain't seen you smile yet. But some of us. Here's a question. Would you strengthen your hands for the work? Would you help build the kingdom? What God is doing here at Friendship. will you be a part of it? We all stand to our feet, every head bowed, every eye closed.